The CBS New York Book Club is highlighting the final book by the iconic Dr. Ruth Westheimer. The legendary New Yorker died in July at the age of 96. She was a trailblazing sex therapist, and her last book, The Joy of Connections, was aimed at helping people tackle loneliness. Allison Gilbert co-wrote the book with Dr. Ruth and joins us now. Welcome. It's so good to talk to you.
It is so great to be here. Thank you so much.
And I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Ruth a number of times, and she was pure joy, and she had such an incredible way of connecting.
Listen, she was a 4'7" dynamo. She may have been small, but her personality was big, and she made everyone who she met feel like they could be her dear friend, and she just collected friends, friend by friend, bit by bit throughout her entire life.
She had this unexpected career of being a sex therapist. This book, though, is about the epidemic of loneliness, how to overcome loneliness. She gives us 100 ways of doing this, and how interesting for her to tackle this issue.
Well, there was stigma related to sexual dysfunction, so she was very comfortable talking about uncomfortable situations. And when we don't feel like we have enough good friends, because it's never about quantity, it's about quality. And if you don't feel like you have those relationships, you might be feeling really uncomfortable to admit it. And so loneliness is hard because it feels so alienating. And she wanted to tackle something that made people feel othered, because she felt othered throughout her entire life. And people may not know that about Dr. Ruth, but she felt lonely much of her life. She was orphaned by the time she was 10 years old. So she grew up without her family and had to piece back a family of chosen friends to fill that gap. And she did it beautifully.
I really think most people don't know the tragedy she faced as a young girl.
Listen, if we don't talk about what makes us real, it's really hard to connect. And so if you can be vulnerable, if you can leave little breadcrumbs in your conversations about what makes you real, maybe you've lost a job, maybe you've lost a parent or a spouse. Someone has to go first, right? Someone has to be truthful. And it's in that place of authenticity that real relationships can be born. And that's what she really wanted to have New Yorkers understand.
Yeah, and the book is not really just rhetoric about loneliness. It's really giving you actual action plans to overcome loneliness. One of the things she talks about is even around the holidays, you know, there might be one person who constantly hosts and is getting really frustrated about this and saying, you know what, I should give this to someone else, and maybe taking action and not hosting. But tell me what she would say to that.
Yeah, do not keep score. If at the end of the day you're hosting more and you're starting to be a little bit resentful, like, why aren't I invited to places? Why am I always the one who is putting out the invitation? If that is the way you are judging the success of your social life because you're hosting more and they're hosting less, don't do that. Reciprocity is not your goal. Your goal is to spend time with people that you want, because you may not know why somebody else doesn't want you in their apartment. Maybe it's too small. Maybe the idea of even buying one more bottle of, soda is like one thing too much for their budget these days. You don't know. Maybe their attempt to befriend you and get closer is just showing up. So be grateful if someone chooses to accept your invitation.
One of the others was take a college class, but take a college class in something you know about.
Yes, the Westheimer maneuver was real. So it's just about being more confident. So if you're taking a pottery class and you already have some expertise, take a beginner's class, because then you're going to be more open to meeting people in your pottery class instead of freaking out that you're not doing it right. So it's a little bit of a Westheimer maneuver, which I love.
Something about Dr. Ruth, she had so many of those maneuvers. I really enjoyed this book, and how special for you to be able to participate with her in her final book.
She made everyone feel warm and in her light. And how she did that was being curious about other people. That's one other tip in the book. Ask questions. Do not complain about your life. We all have things that we want to kind of harp on, but no, if you're going to be more inquisitive about somebody else's career and their family, guess what? They're going to want to be with you more because you're making them feel good. And you know, Dr. Ruth made me feel good. She would ask about my husband, and she would ask about my kids, and she would be curious about me, and that helped really forge our relationship.
Well, Allison, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you
for taking
so much.
some time
Oh my gosh, what a pleasure.
us.
Thank you.
And 'tis the season of